May we go on with what we were talking about on Sunday. We were saying that human beings have evolved for millions of years. Evolution implies time. Not only physical time, but psychological, inward time. Man has grown from the very beginning of time, of his existence, through various experiences, calamities, accidents, fears, anxieties, and so on. Our brain has evolved in that direction. And I think no one can dispute that point. And so it has formed a pattern, a mold according to which it lives. This pattern, this mold, is the process of time, which is called evolution. And so the brain and the mind, both are the same, can never be free. I hope you're thinking over together. This is not a propaganda or persuading you to think in a particular direction. We are thinking together, trying to find out the causes why human beings live the way we are living, though we have had million years of experience, sorrow, fear, pleasure, and so on. We were asking yesterday or day before, why? What is the cause of all this terror, misery, confusion, uncertainty? And we were saying that one of the causes may be that from the very beginning, man has sought security, not only in the environment, but also inwardly security. That may be one of the causes of this present calamity. And also we said it may be that during all this evolutionary time, man has cultivated the idea of individuality, the me and the you, the me separate, struggling, fighting against you to survive. And that may be one of the causes of this present misery, confusion, and terror. And also we said one of the major causes may be thought itself. And we pointed out where there is a cause, there can also be an end to that cause. I think this we must clearly understand right from the beginning. A cause, a beginning, a motive, which has its own effect, and that causation can continue all the time. And that cause can be ended. I think this is obvious if you go into it for yourself. As we said yesterday, if we have physical pain, there is a cause for that pain. And that cause, that pain can be ended. Similarly, psychologically, there is maybe a cause for our suffering, for our fears, anxieties, and so on. And that cause can be, if there is a cause, it can be ended. This is a law, you can't, this is so. And we were asking yesterday, or day before, what is the basic cause of all this confusion? Is there one cause or several causes? I do not know if you have gone into it and thought over it, or merely passed it by and have not given your attention to it to find out for yourself. But as we go along, perhaps we shall be able to find out the cause, the one cause, or several causes. If there are several causes for our misery, is it possible to analyze these causes? Please go very carefully with me. We are thinking together. I am not telling you what to think. We're not doing any kind of propaganda. The speaker is not persuading you in any direction. Because we must be free to observe and find out. Therefore, there is no authority. There is no group or sect or person who will tell you. We have to be so alert for ourselves to find out. So we are saying, are there many causes for this? Or there is only one supreme cause, which includes all other causes. You following? We said, maybe one of the causes may be this constant desire for security. To be safe, to be protected, to feel that one is stable, without any uncertainty. And we said also, there may be a cause, which is, man has always thought of himself as an individual, separate from whole of humanity. And therefore, he has built himself a wall of division between himself and the rest, and that may be one of the causes. And the other causes may be thought itself. Was everyone? So, man and his brain and mind have been molded through time, through what is called evolution, millions and millions of years. And time has not given him freedom. He may be free outwardly. He can go about from country to country, from job to job, from one business to another, perhaps not, certainly not in the totalitarian countries, but in the democratic, so-called democratic society, there is a certain amount of freedom, physically. But psychologically, inwardly, the mind, which includes the brain, have been molded through time. And therefore it's never, never free. And it may be one of the causes that man has made himself a prisoner. Psychologically, and therefore there is no freedom for him to flower. Right? I hope we are meeting each other. Please, if I may ask, we are thinking together. You have to exercise your brain, your mind, your heart, so that to find this out. Because if we don't, we're going to destroy each other. That's what's happening in the world. One nation becoming more important than the other. One tribe more important than the other. Building up armaments, you know all the rest of it. 400,000 million dollars in war every year. You understand the craziness of this? So the brain, the mind, which are one, has never been free. And without freedom, man cannot flower. He cannot possibly go beyond himself. And that may be one of the major causes of our confusion. Because inwardly we are not free. We have been molded through time to certain patterns. If you have observed your own mind, your own brain in operation, one can find out very easily that we have repeated a certain pattern, walked along a certain path for a million years. We have been brainwashed by the priests for 2,000 years in the West, brainwashed in the East for perhaps 3, 4, 5,000 years and more. So our brains are conditioned. Our brains are molded according to a certain edict, sanctions by the teachers, by the philosophers, by the priests. The priests acting between you and what that. They are the saviors. Perhaps it was good at certain time in the ancient Egypt, ancient Eastern civilizations. But now that kind of thing has become rather infantile. So, what is the cause of all this? Man, technologically, intellectually, scientifically, in all those directions has evolved enormously. He's become extraordinarily clever, erudite, capable, not only to kill each other, but to heal each other. Medicine, surgery, and so on. And as we pointed out the other day, science is trying to find through matter the ultimate. If you've talked with scientists, it is so. That is, through matter, outside, and investigate, accumulate a great deal of knowledge about the outer, and trying to hope through that to find out the origin of all this. The scientists are doing that. The religious people say there is God. And that God has created this world. That God must be rather miserable God, rather confused, corrupt God, to make this world as it is. Or you have your own particular pet theory, the origin of all this, intellectually conceived, intellectually comprehending the many philosophers, the theologians, the theoreticians of the communists, as well as the Christian theologians, and so on. You might have certain conclusions, opinions, judgments. But if you want to find out the origin of all this, you must set aside everything of that, obviously. And that demands not only certain quality of strength of perception, but it requires very careful observation, not analysis. Again, analysis is the pattern of time. We have analyzed. Not only the world outside of us, but also philosophers, psychologists, psychotherapists have analyzed our minds and have come to certain conclusions, certain concepts, and so on. And we are conditioned by these people. And to find out what is the original cause of all this, one must be free of all that. Otherwise, there is no freedom. Freedom is not to go from this village to that village, or freedom of choice in your job, freedom of speech, freedom of this and that. But real freedom lies when the mind and the brain, or the whole organism of psychological structure, is free from all the patterns, from all the molds, from all the impositions of others on our minds and heart. So if you are serious, and I hope you are, and you must be because of this coming and sitting here in spite of this awful weather, I hope you are serious enough to go into all this. It's not just this morning or yesterday, day before yesterday, but it will be a continuous 6 inquiry, observation. Don't please say, I've heard him, I've understood, or he's talking nonsense, and walk out. One must have a great deal of patience. Impatience is time. Patience is not time. Patience means observation, close, careful, critical, step-by-step observation. That is real patience. In that observation, there is no time. But if you are impatient to get on, then that you are running ahead without understanding the beginning. So what is the cause of this misery? Is it the demand for security? Is it this illusion that we are separate? Our brain is totally different from another brain. Our minds, our behavior is different from you and another. Or is it thought? There is no Western thought or Eastern thought. Thought is thought. Whether you live in Asia, Far East, or Middle East, or in the West, it is still thought. Maybe thinking in a particular way or in a particular direction, in a certain pattern, but that is still thought. Whether that thought is employed, exercised in the East or in the West, it's still thought. Perhaps conditioned by the environment in the West or in the East, but it's still thinking. So is that the cause of all this? Because if you have observed historically that man has gone on through this, in this way of living, fighting each other, strife, conflict, unhappiness, anxiety, a sense of constant, abiding fear, and the pursuit of pleasure, suffering, and a flash of love, translated as sex, and the idea of compassion, which is merely an idea, but not something living. So we are going to, together, please, we are walking on the same road together. I am not leading you. I am not telling you. I am not assuming any authority, because though I sit on a platform, and I really mean all this. So we are walking together to find out, not through analysis. We must go into this question of analysis. When there is analysis, there is division. The analyzer and the analyzed, right? The one assumes he knows and therefore is able to analyze. Observe your own mind, sir. This is happening all the time when we are analyzing. In the process of analysis, Time is necessary. I may not be able to analyze clearly today, but I am going to learn, acquire knowledge how to analyze, and that implies day after day, month after month, or week after week, and gradually learn the art of analysis. Analysis implies there is a division of the analyzer and the analyzed, right? So there is constant interpretation between the two, interrelations between the two, one judging the other. You're following all this? One imposing his dictum on the other. All that implies not only time, a constant division between the two. Right? Right? Well, we're going on together, please. And this division has been one of our conditioning. That the analyzer is totally different from the analyzed. But is that so? Is not the analyzer the analyzed? Are we going along together? When I analyze my anxiety, in analyzing that thing called an anxiety, how do I know that it's anxiety? You're following all this? Because I remember the previous experience of anxiety, I have remembered that, it is stored up in my brain, and the next time that a reaction takes place, I recognize it and say, that is anxiety. So there is always this division constantly maintained. But the fact is, if you observe, when you are angry, you are not different from anger. Only later on you say, I have been angry. I wonder if you're following all this. Please, right? Can we go on? Encouragement. Don't encourage me. So, when one realizes analysis maintains this division constantly, the I, the observer, is different from the observed. Psychologically, I'm talking. Not that I am different from the tree. I am different. But psychologically, this division is the essence of conflict. Essence of trying to be something which you are not, and therefore struggle. That is the pattern in which the brain has lived. Right? And we are saying that process of analysis does not bring about freedom at all. On the contrary, it maintains constant conflict. And the mind, the brain, in constant conflict, must wear itself out. It's never free. It's never flowering, but conflict along the same path. Are we together in this? Do we see this? I'm afraid you won't, because you may be analysts. It may be your profession. And when you are tied to something, you have already entered the path of corruption. Right? You following all this? Please don't be angry with me or upset. We're just pointing out the facts. Either you can look at the facts and act, or you say, it's too much for me. As an analyst, I depend on my wife's responsibility, my children, my patients, my Cadillacs, my Rolls Royces, my whatever car it is, and carry on. But if you are serious in your inquiry into all this, one must give your mind entirely to it. So analysis prevents clear observation. To observe is much more important than to have an analytical mind. We have lost the power of observation, but we have cultivated the art of analysis. We never observe clearly what is going on in our minds and hearts without any distortion. And as our minds and hearts are so distorted, so corrupt, we think that corruption, that distortion can be straightened out through analysis. And therefore, that analysis is never clearly seen the importance of it, the significance of it, because we are committed to it. Like a man committed to a belief will never see himself how ridiculous it is. So we are saying what is important is to observe the activity of our own minds and hearts. And that observation is prevented if there is any form of distortion, any form of direction, which means any motive. Therefore, it requires an extraordinarily attentive mind. Right? Are we moving together? It may be, it may not, it may be something new or something you haven't heard before, or you have read it in some book or other. You know, it would be marvelous if you had read no book. Personally, I haven't. If you have read no book at all, you have heard no preacher, no priest, no philosopher, no guru, and you can then come to it fresh. Come to it so that you can observe your own complete structure. But unfortunately, we're all very clever people, well read, or read sloppily, picking up a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there, and think, adding it all up and say, I've got some knowledge. Whereas if you are observing. It's really marvelous if you can do it. Because in that, there is freedom to observe. That is the essence of freedom. Without that, you cannot possibly enter into all this. I hope you are working as hard as the speaker is doing. So, we are saying, unless the cause is found, there is no ending to the pattern. Right? What is the cause of all this? Of human misery. That is, you are humanity. Please see this, you are humanity. Your brain has grown through 1,000,000 years. It's not your brain. It's the common brain of man. Therefore, you are the world. And the world is you. You are not Swiss, German, all that nonsense. You are actually a human being, like those human beings in the Far East, starving, unhappy, brutally butchered. You are those who suffer, anxious, you are all that psychologically. So your mind, your heart is humanity. You are not separate. If you can understand this, so we are saying our mind is a common mind. Common brain which has grown through time. And that brain and mind has functioned along a certain direction all these years, millennia. And we are going on in the same way, only modifying, adjusting, withdrawing, shrinking, expanding, but it is the same direction. And when we see all this, how man is destroying himself and the earth and the air and nature, the animals, one feels tremendously responsible. And what is the origin of all this? What is the cause of all this? Right? Let's move. Is it thought? Thought is the movement from knowledge. There is, you understand, knowledge, experience, knowledge, memory, thought. It's one movement. It's not first acquiring knowledge, experience, then knowledge, then memory, then thought. It is one unitary movement all the time going on in the same direction. Right? That's us. Is that the essence, the real cause, not the individual, not this desire for security, but the very movement of thought that has brought about this present chaos in the world. Please inquire with me, don't agree or disagree. Because then we can't meet. There's no communication if you disagree or agree. But if you are observing, moving, living, then it's something vital. Thought has created marvelous things. The great cathedrals, the marvelous architecture, the great songs, poems, music, the extraordinary technology, the bomb, the atom. It's all the result of thought.